We have probably all seen this logo and that intro thousands of times in our life. I'm not going to put all the specific scriptures in here, but basically this comes from the Book of Enoch and Genesis. There you will find the mention of Mount Hermon, which translates to the Forbidden Land. Mount Hermon sits in northern Israel. In those scriptures, they talk about 22 fallen angels. You'll notice the 22 stars around Mount Hermon descended upon Mount Hermon. If you go back and watch that video, you'll see that it's actually starting with fallen stars. Angels are often referred to in the scripture as stars. In those scriptures, it said that the fallen angels descended upon Mount Hermon to take wives of the human women and breed with them. This was the creation of the Nephilim, or the giants, which ultimately led to the Great Flood in the scriptures.
Facts. Mount Hermon, the highest United Nations base in the world, sits on the peak of Mount Hermon, which is where the fallen angels landed according to the Book of Enoch.
The fallen angels' children still walk this earth today, just not in giant form. Today, we're going to explore and research who are those descendants of the fallen angels today.
We're in the devil's house, a lion's den, pit full of snakes, trapped in no whirlwind, and as me world spin in hell's kitchen with hell's angels, facing constant danger.
The Book of Enoch is essentially an ancient Hebrew religious text ascribed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. It's made up of several shorter books that discuss the origins of giants and demons, how the angels fell from grace, and why the great flood of Genesis was necessary. Despite the notion that the Book of Enoch helped form the worldview of Judaism and Christianity, neither recognize it as biblical canon. It is referenced but never considered a work inspired by God. Others interpret this to mean the Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible because it challenged beliefs and inspired ideas the church had deemed as dangerous.
There's also definitely something else worth noting. Towards the end of the Book of Enoch, they also describe Noah's birth and Noah as having white skin, resembling to that of the fallen ones, and this is according to the text itself, not according to me. This comes from the fragment of the Book of Noah, Enoch chapter 106, verses 1 through 7. And after some days, my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant by him and bore a son. And his body was white as snow, and red as the blooming of a rose, and the hair of his head and his long locks were white as wool, and his eyes pleasant. And when he opened his eyes, he lit up the whole house like the sun, and the whole house was very bright. And after that he rose in the hands of the midwife, and opened his mouth, and conversed with Yahuwah of righteousness. And his father Lamech was very afraid of him, and fled, and came to his father Methuselah. And he said unto him, I have begotten a strange son, different from an unlike man, and resembling the sons of the Yahuwah of the Shamayim, or heaven. And his nature is different, and he is not like us. And his eyes are as the rays of the sun, and his face is magnificent. And it seems to me that he is not brought forth from me, but from the messengers. And I fear that in his days a wonder may be wrought on the earth. And now, my father, I am here to petition you and implore you that you may go to Enoch our father and learn from him the truth, for his dwelling place is amongst the messengers. What's the truth when it comes to all of this? That yes, history has been whitewashed, and you even see it in the Book of Enoch. That's another reason that they had to hide this book, because they don't want you to know that all of the people in Scripture were in fact black indeed. All of the prophets of old and all of the people in Scripture were dark-skinned, so-called black, including Enoch, including Methuselah, including Lamech, including Adam, all the way down until the Mashiach and the people during his time too. But it was only until they became whitewashed that they all of a sudden became white. Oh, what wonders a paintbrush will do, indeed, based on the synagogues of Satan who go around and say that they're the chosen, even though they're not, and there's scripture to prove this too. And just as we read in the Book of Enoch, Noah was in fact albino and he gave birth to black children, and all of his children were in fact black because they were all black back then. And I've gone over plenty of scripture with this to prove that yes, the people of scripture were in fact black, with the exception of giants and the fallen ones. And that's another reason that this book was hidden, in order to whitewash history.
All right, so let's just do a quick examination of what the text really says. It says Noah was born with white skin. Noah did not look like other humans. Lamech believed Noah was the son of an angel, and angels were having children on earth. So what this text implies is white skin was not common among humans, and the children of angels, Nephilim, were white. So after doing a close examining the current evidence on Neanderthal man with comparison to references in early manuscripts of the Nephilim, an ancient race of half-breed humans, we can safely say that with scientific facts to back it up, that the Neanderthal and the Nephilim are one and the same race. So it's here that we proposed examination of the evidence and facts currently available on the Neanderthal man revealed that they could have been a race of half-breed humans referred to in some of the earliest manuscripts found as the Nephilim, because both are described as being half-breeds, and they have people on earth today still described as half-breeds. So could those same people be children of the Nephilim or children of the angels? As stated earlier, having no melanin is caused by the fallen angels having sex with the original inhabitants of the earth, and they produce white children.
Facts. Mount Hermon. The highest United Nations base in the world sits on the peak of Mount Hermon, which is where the fallen angels landed according to the Book of Enoch.
Now, it is said that the fallen angels landed on Mount Hermon. And we take a look at the map of Mount Hermon over in the Middle East, close by Europe. Well, when we look at the migration of the Neanderthal, when you look at this map, if you look at the blue dots, it say 35,000 years ago, which is the oldest. It's right there by Mount Hermon. And then it goes into Europe. It's not no evolution. This is a mixture. You know, you was taught that white skin came from people migrating to colder climates. But from what we're looking at, Neanderthal and the Nephilim are the same. Neanderthal started right where the fallen angels fell, Mount Hermon. Is this a coincidence, or could this be the hidden history that they don't want people to know? Take a closer look at the maps, Neanderthal sites from the Middle East to Europe. And when you look at the Middle East, that's Mount Hermon, where the fallen angels fell.
Why are we still here and Neanderthals are not? The Neanderthal story seems simple. Their forerunners reached Europe around 800,000 years ago. When Homo sapiens joined them around 40,000 years ago, it marks the beginning of the end. Some 10,000 years after modern humans arrive, virtually all traces of Neanderthals are gone.
That's the lies we've been told for years after years on top of years, that we're all the same. Then they're going to say Neanderthal, all traces have been gone. But it's not all traces have been gone. It's that Neanderthal mix with the original inhabitants of the earth. And now you have a bunch of hybrids running around, which is why the Bible clearly states not to mix with certain people. It makes more sense if you know what was going on back then. But when you were born into a world of lies and you think that everyone's the same, even though we don't look the same, smell the same, anything, you thinking mixing is okay. But that was a big sin in the Bible. Why is that? The wheat and the tares. Who's the wheat and who's the tares? Who's the original and who's from the fallen?
On for tonight, yes, I'm just holding on for tonight. I'm just holding on for tonight. On for tonight, on for tonight. Yes, I'm just holding on for tonight. Yes.
Now we all heard the story about the Greek gods, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, and the other ones of Olympia. But when you really listen to the story, they also fit the description of the Watchers.
In her solitude, the god Zeus, king of Olympus, noticed how beautiful she was, and so decided to pay her a visit. Zeus transformed himself into the form of a shower of gold and entered her cell. He made love to her and she became pregnant with child. When the child was born, she named him Perseus.
The fallen angels. Zeus came down and had several children with regular women when he's supposed to be considered a god, such as Hercules. Everybody know Hercules, who's one of the famous demigods. And the demigod would be another example of a half-breed, half angel, half man. So these stories of the children of the fallen angels are really all around, and they're not necessarily going to be giants all the time. When we take it to the Greeks' mythology, they're regular size humans, just like a regular size man. So think about that. When you listen to the Greek stories, when you look at them, don't they resemble the fallen angels? Wanting to be praised and worshiped as a god? They still immortals. As far as we know, they live way longer than us, but they can still die because the Creator can take them out and they can take each other out. What do y'all think about that?
About the white race. Many of you dark-skinned people, in America mainly, have had a suspicion for a very long time. White people are not really human. And this suspicion has been around for a long, long time. And like any suspicion which is around for a long, long time, there is a little bit of truth to it. I want to admit today to you that white people originating from Northern Europe are called, not aliens, they are called Aryans. Sorry about that, my brain don't function so well today. These white people are not really human from this earth like black people are, Indian people are, Asian people are. Yes, they are all humans. We white people are actually a minority, and we are, let's face the truth, also called the tall whites. Not all of us are tall, not all of us are completely white, but in general, that's what it is. And as some of you may know, the tall whites are not really earthly human, but we're coming out of space, out of another galaxy. We are not human as the rest of the human race. We came here from another star.
Now, you hear this guy, white guy, saying that they're not humans out his own mouth. And when he talk about where they come from, he talking about the tall whites, or what you would call the Pleiadians, something like that, who are so-called some white aliens. And we're not going to use the term aliens because we're going back to the old terms, which is fallen angels. So these Pleiadians are fallen angels, and these so-called white people are the children of these tall whites. Wasn't that make them still like the demigods from the Greeks? Or would that make them the Nephilim from the Bible? The fallen angels coming down, mixing and producing hybrids out the horse's mouth itself.
People all have a secret code, a secret language under each other. We know, no matter how nice we pretend to be, we all stick together in order to control the other races, particularly the black race. And I am feeling so bad about it by now that I had to speak out here on this video and admit it. White people are not human. White people, including myself, all stick together, know the truth, which they do not want to admit to you. White people are out of space. We come from another galaxy. We all know our home planet, which we don't want to reveal because we don't want to be attacked. And we have no good intention with you. We do not want to share our wealth with you.
Azazel was one of the fallen angels who rebelled against God. He was beautiful at the beginning of time, but his magnificence was corrupted after the fall. Azazel had a carnal relationship with the woman who lived on earth. The fruits of this union would become known as Nephilim. Azazel's descendants corrupted the earth and were swept away by God's flood. In hell, he is the king of the Shemites, demons that look like goats. Azazel, who was once an angel, became the archdemon who represents the capital sin, gives wrath. When man is under the influence of Azazel, he usually devotes himself to idolatry.
By the time these young people get ready to have children, they will realize that as the hole in the ozone layer gets larger and larger, more and more sunlight is allowed to enter our environment, and more people who have pale faces are going to die of melanoma, which is a skin cancer that you get if you don't have enough melanin in your skin. Let me tell you, people of color are going to be very much in demand for reproduction in the future. And mark my words, you're laughing now, but you wait 20 years. You won't even have to wait 20 years, because they're going to see that if they want their children, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren to survive, they're going to have some melanin in their skin. That's the way it's going to be. This is going to take care of itself.